Greetings and welcome back to another live witches chat. I am Fire Lotus for the people that do not know. I've been doing these for about 4 years. This specifically since January started of this year. I used to do these on my Facebook page, but now I'm doing them here because we have way more control. So, with that also being said, hi, I'm Fire Lotus. If you did not know already, I have a Discord, Lotus Hollow. I have this YouTube page. I have a podcast, 2 Instagrams, and 2 TikToks with my Facebook page. This is also a friendly reminder that the 17th is the last day. The last day to book a reading with me before the prices with my readings change. So, with that also being said, let's dive in. So yesterday, I got a lovely surprise that I was not expecting, which was a package, actually, too. One of my really good followers ordered some things off my Amazon wish list, and due to the fact that books are a hot topic right now, we're going to dive into some. I'm also going to show a lot of other books that I have that I mentioned yesterday that me having them, popping in to say hi, an hour to my smile. Oh, congratulations! I'm super excited. I cannot wait to see the pictures. But yeah, I'm going to dive into a couple of books, and then we're going to talk about something that I have to figure out how to put into a video that's not going to be controversial. That's not going to be fun. So, to start this off, for one, this is one of the things, and it is a planary, and I love how they have this because it literally, you create it yourself, so it doesn't matter which year you get. And it goes over how to use the planner, the wheel of the year, magical moon phases, the appendix. At the back of the book, it has magical essential oils, crystal magic, candle colors, and their magical correspondences, the witch's moon diet, author, contributions, and pictures credited. And there are pictures all through this. There are recipes, all different types of amazing artwork, and I definitely need it because I've definitely got to stay more organized. So you'll be seeing this a lot. The other 2 books, and if you hear Bubbers, he's really pissed off right now because he's not allowed up here in this space because he's tried to attack me twice because he thinks I'm playing with him. And I'm breaking these down as well. Conjure Cards. They are, the back of them, they are by Jake Richards, the same author behind Backwoods Appalachian Witchcraft and or Appalachian Folk Magic and the Notebook of the Devil. But it says, for centuries, people living in Appalachia used homemade playing cards for divination, fortune-telling, and dream interpretation. This unique deck, created by Jake Richards, is fashioned after the folklore, superstitions, and dream symbols that Jake learned as he grew up in the eastern Tennessee. The Conjure Cards include 54 cards and a 64-page guidebook on how to interpret them, as well as suggest layouts for divinations. Jake Richards' family legacy in Appalachia goes back generations. He has practiced Appalachian folk magic for almost a decade and teaches classes on the subject in Jonesburg, Tennessee, where he owns Little Chicago Conjure, a preview of Appalachian folk magic supplies. He is also the author of Backwoods Witchcraft and Doctoring the Devil. These are going to be interesting, and I've already heard that they will call you out, like, holy shit, call you out. And now you're about to see one of the, well, controversial books. Not the one that I'm about to show you, the second one. Super excited about this. This right here is the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, Black Magic, Superstitions, Charms, and Divinations. It is a first edition 1910, John Smith and Co. New edition 2016. And this work is one of the numbers. This work is one of a number of manuscripts crafted towards the end of the 1800s, well into the 1920s, containing material related to all aspects of the occult, memorism, ceremonial magic, the black arts, talismans, and more. What is interesting here is that all of the above and more are contained in one work instead of separately. Super excited to read this. Now let's get into a controversial book because I have it. That's literally the reason. And hello, everybody. This right here is Paper in My Shoe, Names, Papers, Petitions, and Prayer Papers in the Hoodoo Rootwork Traditions. And it says, learn how to craft spiritually named paper inks to distant people, employ within command to get your way in life. Use printed prayers and paper currently in candle spells, and carry prepared papers on your personal for mastery of control. Paper in My Shoe is the practice manual that will teach you the art of written magic in the African American traditions, hoodoo, and root work. Now, you'll probably ask yourself, well, why is that controversial? Because I have it. A lot of people think that hoodoo, we're not getting into that because it technically, depending on the type of hoodoo, it is a closed practice. But when it comes to Appalachian folk magic and American folk magic, root work and conjure, Southern conjure, are involved in this, aka petitions and papers. This was on my Amazon book list, and I'm obsessed with it already. And then I got this amazing little box. Hello, everybody. But yeah, I was not expecting it. I don't get notified if somebody gets me something off the Amazon wish list, and if you ever check it out, you'll know that the majority of all items on there are books or tools that I can use and basically turn around and do like that. Now, when I actually get through with these 2 books, I will be reading them. But if you caught my live yesterday, you know that I mentioned some books that I have that are also considered, whoops, problematic, as in I have them. For one, we're gonna, and I literally have a pile. This is an amazing book. It is not for beginners. This is slightly advanced, but amazing. And it is Mountain Conjure and Southern Root Work. It's also forwarded by Matt Arar, author of Psychic Witch, which I kind of didn't like. But anyways. Now, this other one, if I were to share this online, people may have an issue with it. I don't see why people would have an issue with it. And it is Indian Herbiology of North America. This is a thick book. It does not really have magical properties. It is all about herbal remedies and stuff like that. This, I have a passage to read out of this. This is not controversial. This is a fucking amazing book. But that's the book. Southern Conjure is the book that touched on witch fire and witch blood, which I'll be reading a passage from. The Secret Keys of Conjure. Unlock the mysteries of American folk magic. Hands down a must-need if you are interested in conjuration and or conjure. And before you say that, or before you actually announce that you are reading this book, you're going to get a lot of backlash because people still argue today that conjuration is closed to only people of color. It is not. Now, the next 2 books, well, I got shit for. It's one of the reasons you know that I give a community honey jar ceremony that I do randomly throughout the months of the year. A lot of people said that I was closed practicing. Honey jars are not a closed practice. But I did mention this book yesterday that I said that I should have brought up here, and I did today, which is Hoodoo, Honey, and Sugar Spells, Sweet Love Magic in the Conjuring Tradition by Deacon Millet. That is the author. Is there a picture of him in here? No, of course there's not. This is the author that I said has been linked to a lot of no-no stuff in the southern states. But hands down, it is actually an excellent book. There's another one that is in this kind of series, which is on love magic. But one of the reasons that I love getting these books is because I did not know how much you can use sugar supplements like Splenda and multiple other things in your practice. I learned from this. Now, the other book I've been wanting for probably 15 years, and it was actually a slight letdown only because I knew most of the things in it. This book, on the other hand, well, Witch Talk would say it's closed. It's not, though. Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones, Hoodoo, Mojo, and Conjuring with Herbs by Stephen Rose Bird. This book right here. Now, the cover right here, this is kind of a revamp versus the original one that I saw. But it's still a good book to have. Now, the reason I showed all these is because it was a conversation who actually sent me this, the other books, of the reason these are important and the reason I love collecting these books, on top of also reading them, of course, which is, and this has been a hot topic due to the whole block list and blacklist and all this other shit that's going around online. So people are under the consumption that if you research on a closed practice, that is practicing in itself. No, it is not. Why should you read other cultures or other practices, research them to understand them? Why is that so important? For one, you're going to be able to stop the misspread of information, but for two, you're also bringing awareness to it. You're learning from it. With me, when it comes to in real life how I am, I'm known as the person who has random fucking knowledge. I have so much random knowledge and tidbits on all spectrums, right? And a lot of people ask me, well, why? And I'm like, why not? It's there to learn. It's there to read. Why not? We are living in a time and history right now where you literally have the world at the tips of your fingers. And nobody's taking that knowledge in. For one, if you read any of Jake Richards' books, you would understand that the reason he literally had like this war, this eternal war going back and forth with him and his ancestors, because the reason that he decided to create those two books and to actually put all that sacred knowledge into a text, into a book, was because the younger generations that were coming forward were no longer carrying on these traditions and these practices. And he realized that it's either A, I write this book, or all of this knowledge is eventually just going to cease to exist. And, hold on. You! Get out of my plant! These kittens, they're driving me crazy. But the reason he did this is because it's a way to preserve his knowledge, this knowledge. And now Appalachian folk magic is one of the fastest growing practices, I would say. But when it comes to, and this is another thing that I've had to argue with people, that when they hear Appalachian folk magic, they automatically think, oh, you're culture appropriating. For one, Appalachian folk magic is not closed. If somebody meets you and tells you that it's closed, they're lying. And that has been a debate with the Appalachian community where a lot of practitioners are saying, no, this shit is closed unless you are from Appalachia. I disagree. And I'm from Appalachia. Well, I'm from the foothills of the Appalachians. I grew up with being told old wives' tales and stories and stuff like this, and I didn't know it was magic until now. But with that also being stated, if we constantly, like right now, somebody's arguing in my comments of like me comparing both of those lists, the problematic creator list and the problematic author list, they're not the same thing. They are the same thing. The reason both lists were created was to point out racism or certain thought processes that people are using. That's just a no-no. The problem is, if we go around trying to cancel every author that comes out with a problematic book, we would have no knowledge. We would have no books. We would have nothing that we actually need. Hitler burned all the books that went against his thought process. We don't need that. We need this knowledge around. Not to mention, we need to stop mixing cancel culture and witchcraft together, because they do not go together. Now, what's cool with these cards is you can actually use an actual plain deck of playing cards. That's what these are. Plain deck of playing cards. I have not learned how to read these yet. This is a hell of a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. But I'm definitely super excited to actually jump into it. Not to mention, the detail on this is amazing. It literally feels like wood. And then all of these books that I just recently got, when I read them, I will also be, and this does come with a booklet, a 69-page booklet. But I will also be, I grew up reading a deck of playing cards, Graham's taught me. Oh, that is awesome. I haven't. I've heard about it, but I've never actually, like, did it before. So I'm super excited. Live chats. There we go. I'm super excited to actually be able to learn this particular divination thing. And that's also going to lead me into two other things that I wanted to address and talk about. With tarot cards, there was this video that I made because a lot of people, if you're on TikTok, you've seen the videos. A lot of people are throwing up tarot cards and they're assigning meanings to those cards that have never been associated with them. I think it's the Three of Swords that everybody's like, your ex is coming back. That has nothing to do with your ex. And somebody stitched that because they didn't understand the point of view that I was trying to say. And they're like, well, if you look at the artwork, that can be interpreted. Yes, 1000%. But with that being said, I'm not going to pull up the Tower card and say, hey, your ex is coming back. Or, hey, everything's about to go amazingly. That's what I meant by that. Now, with that, a conversation started in the comments of that video, which I love, which are, somebody said that if you want to randomly assign or associate meanings to a card, Oracle is the way to go, because most Oracle cards don't really have their own meanings. They're not like tarot cards. And with that being said, I agree with that 1000%. I have 2 types of tarot decks, and I have 3 types of Oracle decks. Now, 4. What I learned using Oracle decks, because there was this creator who I actually interviewed on my podcast, and it's the creator behind Flowers from the Dead, Oracle. Now, the reason that I loved that Oracle deck so much when I learned about it was because, for one, this author actually did create her own tarot deck, but it's no longer in print. I'm hoping we can get it back in print because the artwork is amazing. But she's also a tattoo artist, or there are tattoo artists. So with that being said, this specific deck that I'm talking about, the only thing you get are 2 words. 1 to 2 words and then a picture. That's it. There's no book. It's just a deck of cards. And she actually created this deck because when it comes to tarot, a lot of people get very, very overwhelmed because there's like 80-something cards. Not really 80. I think there's 60-something. And that's a lot of cards, and they're very detailed. So that's a lot of information to retain. So she created this deck and for the purpose for it specifically you tapping into your intuition. And let me tell y'all, it is the best deck. And she argues this with me because I'm like, you don't understand. This is the best deck that I've ever read. And she goes, it's not the deck, it's the reader. But the reason that deck helped me so much was because I am an intuitive reader. But with that being stated, if I use tarot cards, that intuitiveness is not saying I'm going to interpret this message the way that I want to. No. With Oracle cards, on the other hand, you do have that free reign of saying and actually creating the meaning of it, and or just go ahead and make your own deck. I personally have one in the workings that I've been working on off and on for the past 5 years. Yeah, 5 years now. And it's going to be an extremely abstract deck because I'm very abstract. But Oracle cards, they can help you gain confidence before you try tackling tarot cards. Because I'm tackling tarot cards now, even though I've been reading them off and on for probably fucking 15 years now, I am still not up to par to where I can just pick out a card and boom, I can tell you. No. But Oracle cards, they keep you guessing, but they also, like I said, they help you tap in to your actual intuition. Now, with that also being said, the most important thing when it comes to reading Oracle and or Tarot and in your spirituality and or witchcraft is confidence. Confidence is key. Now, with that all being said, we're about to talk about something else that was brought to my attention. Well, we got some scammers, not scammers. Remove. Thank you. Okay. But with this, for the people that do not know, I do offer magical services. Here recently, a very, very popular one is cord cutting ceremonies. And yes, I did say ceremony, and this is why. So I had a comment, and I've already reached out and talked to them and explained to them that I'm not really going to make the video they wanted me to. They asked me if I could make a tutorial video on how to walk somebody through the steps of making a cord cutting. Here's the issue with that. This person is not a magical practitioner. And that's the issue. For one, cord cuttings are not for beginners. A lot can go wrong with it, and that's not talked about enough on social media. For two, if you do not understand how to manipulate and work with energy or the essence of correspondences, whether that's herbs, crystals, sticks, dirt, rocks, all of it, if you can't tap into that energy, you're not doing magic. That is literally the definition of magic, is learning to manipulate the energy around you to get a desired outcome that you want. With that being said, yes, I could make a tutorial video. The problem is it will not work. And if it does work, if you don't do it properly, you're going to royally fuck up and screw up, which is bad. Now, the reason I'm having a hard time making this video is because if I state a video like that, look, I'm not doing it because you're not a magic practitioner, so therefore you don't know how to do it. People are going to accuse me of gatekeeping. That's not gatekeeping, that's educating. People are using gatekeeping way out of context. But what I mean by that is there's a reason, for an example, petitions. And there are thicker books than this on how to do them. And it's because it's not just writing your intention down on a piece of paper over and over again and then charging it or activating it. Sigils, for example, I don't see a lot of people. Hello. I don't see a lot of people doing it either. Sigils, you are supposed to activate your sigil after it is created. There are a number of ways you do this. I like to do this with marijuana, the smoke to it. For the people that did not know, yes, you can use that in your practice as breathing life into something. You can breathe on the sigil. You can clap the sigil. You can create it or activate it by using oils. You can do it by fire, by burning it, by soaking it. By doing like this. It just depends on you, but you do have to activate it. And a lot of people don't understand this. A lot of people, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to create this sigil. Great, you created it. You have to activate it. Again, not talked about on social media. But the problem that I have with this are a lot of people are just tying string around a candle, carving a name into it, and then burning it. That's not magic. Now, what I mean by that is if you've seen any of my videos, and I will actually do one very soon. I know I have like 3 videos to make today anyways, which I'll probably make those tomorrow and upload them throughout the weekend. But you have to tap into that energy. Now, what I mean by that is, okay, imagine this right here. Look, there we go. We got a circle. Imagine this right here. That's a candle, that's a candle, that's a candle, and that's a candle, right? And this right here is a ring of herbs, right? So if I were to do this like this, we imagine in the candles, I would use my pendulum and or some type of crystal and or wand that I can direct that energy with. I will hover over this candle. Once I've connected to that energy, I will slowly move that pendulum over to this one, and then to this one, and then to this one, and then back to that one. And on top of that, I'm directing them and working with them to where these 4 candles are working together just like the perfectly tango, right? Then I'm going to do that with the herbs, the circle of herbs. And then I'm going to do that with the crystals in the center of this. And then after I've connected all of their energies together, I'm going to pull that up and outward. That is magic. Versus throwing some herbs on a candle, dousing it in oil, and lighting it and just setting your intention. That's not magic. And if it is, it's not proper magic that I'm aware of. Now, this is where it gets confusing because a lot of people are going to be like, well, you're telling someone how to do their practice. No, I'm telling you how to do the basics of magical practices. Magical practices is the manipulation of energy, and you want to get more scientific, it is the manipulation of atoms and neutrons in our universe that we are manipulating to basically get something that we want. That is how magic is done. If you're not doing it, you're not doing magic. You're just burning candles and burning herbs. And to all the magical practitioners out there, they would understand this. Now, with that being stated, well, how do you learn how to do energy? That's slightly complex too, because everybody's going to feel energy differently. Now I do have videos out on how basic energy work is, but if you're not doing energy work, you're not doing magic. It's the same thing as me. I'm an anetheist, which means I believe this book, this lighter, this book, this bone, I believe they all have their own essence and or spirits to that. Therefore, they're basically consciousness. Now, with that being said, somebody also asked, what is an egregore? An egregore is an energetic being that was created that does not have a physical body. Now, this technically goes into Judaism or mysticism. There's also what is known as a golem. Now, a golem is slightly different, but also the same. The only difference is, from my understanding, is a golem actually has a physical body. Anything can theoretically be an egregore if you do it right. How do you feed an egregore? That depends on the practitioner who created it. Like right now in my right pocket, I have a mojo bag that I created. Am I going to show it? No, I am not. But it is basically a black leather bag that I ordered from Etsy. It is real leather. And traditionally with mojo bags, there are supposed to be an equal or opposite number. Um, and then there are only supposed to be a certain amount of ingredients into that. I, on the other hand, have kind of tweaked it to where it's my own. But the cool thing is about that is not only are you working with the ingredients or the spirit of the ingredients you put in there, but you're also creating an entity in itself as well. You're creating a living, breathing thing. And you have to feed it properly. A lot of people just, like, they just pour oil. No, 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 no. A drop on your finger. Rub it onto the bag, and then I breathe on it, breathing life back into it. That is how I feed it. When I feed it depends on how you create it. Mojo bags and or satchels, if that makes you more comfortable. But mojo bags can be extremely, extremely powerful. Jake Richards also talks about it in his books. But you also have to be very careful, as in you have to, it is a living, breathing, magical thing. And it can be used for a number of things. It can be for luck. It can be for gambling. It can be for love. It can be for finances, prosperity. Honestly, it can go on and go on and go on. It can continue. And then, most importantly, depending on how you create it, there needs to be some type of essence of you, whether that's teeth, whether that's hair, fingernails, spit, really, dried blood put in there. Everything and anything, the essence of you. That way it's tied to you. Now, in mine, without going into everything, I have a root that I was told that if I were to get, I would not be able to work with because it's High John the Conquering root. You can work with High John the Conquering root. There was an argument that these herbs, Caucasian people would not be able to tap into and actually work with their spirits. Yes, we can. And if you want more detailed stuff on that, there's the episode where I interviewed Bloody Mary, which is not my favorite episode, but still. She explains that traditional voodoo is closed. In other words, you have to go over there and you have to be initiated in. Creole voodoo, which is voodoo that was created in New Orleans and the other states, because I also found out that there's actually Mississippi voodoo, which is interesting to me. But on top of that, that's also where hoodoo was created. But if you actually understand the history to it, all of these practices came together, like on Sunday in Congo Square. It is a circle where they would perform their dances of their culture and land. But they would invite everybody out there. You would have all different types of people. You have to think of what New Orleans is. New Orleans is just like Appalachia. What do you mean by that? I'm about to explain. They are both a mixing of cultures. They were a mixing pot. You have French, you have Dutch, you have African, you have Hades, you have Haitian, you have Irish, Scottish. It was a port, which means you're going to have different people going in and out. You have Indians as Native Americans and then Indians. You have Hinduisms that brought herbs and spices. All of these were mixed together. That's why if you go to New Orleans, you will see white people or Caucasian people that have been initiated into it in the proper steps. Now, what I practice, because a lot of people still have no idea where I stand with what type of witch I am, what I practice is specifically and primarily Appalachian folk magic and Southern conjure mixed with actual traditional witchcraft, mixed with what people would consider paganism witchcraft. And it is going to change and grow, because beforehand I was doing folk magic without realizing I was doing folk magic. And it brings up that conversation of, like, you know, like I talked about yesterday, if you don't understand how baneful magic works, you're never going to be able to undo it. Now, with that being said, Creole voodoo and traditional voodoo are the two things that for some fucking reason I will not even touch or attempt it until I get... Like, I would rather sit down with somebody and talk face to face about it And that has to do with one problematic author. Um, Silver Ravenwolf. In one of her books, in the very back of it, she mentioned that she walked into a voodoo store and she bought a candle that had spiders on it. She lit it, not understanding what it actually was, and then she woke up the following day with over 100 spider bites all over her. And I've always been told that voodoo, conjure, and hoodoo work differently than what we would consider Wicca or witchcraft. As in, voodoo and hoodoo, you do not have to believe in it for it to affect you. Witchcraft, on the other hand, you do. You kind of have to believe in witchcraft for it to affect you. Creole voodoo and traditional voodoo, you don't really have to believe in that shit for it to affect you. And that's also where the confusion comes from with Appalachia, because you have Southern Conjure, and I was told to call it Southern Conjure because it's more respectful versus saying conjuration, or saying hoodoo. There's a term, root worker. Root worker, a lot of people will automatically associate that with hoodoo and voodoo. In actuality, Appalachian folk practitioners, depending on what they do, they're also known as root workers, as in they work with roots. That's actually what uncrossing is. An uncrossing is where somebody has laid roots on you, aka they've thrown a jinx, a hex, or a curse on you. The uncrossing uncrosses that. It takes that away and it eliminates the X that was thrown on you, if you will. Extremely powerful, extremely powerful. It's also, normally when you hear of an uncrossing, you also hear a road opener. A road opening ceremony or a spell or a candle is to basically, it's a blockbuster. A lot of people call them blockbuster road openers. What it is it eliminates any blockages that are in your path for you to get to where you need to go. Again, all three things that I just named are not for beginners. They are extremely advanced because you have to know what you're doing. When it comes to cord cutting, the reason that they're not for beginners is because if you don't properly do it, for an example, without giving any detailing away, I had somebody in my Discord, and a really good friend, ask about if they could do a cord cutting, but to just sever the awkwardness, but not sever the family. And I was like, that's where it gets complicated at, because if you don't do the cord cutting right, you may accidentally completely cut ties with them completely. And a lot of people have been incorporating that with cutting ties with addiction, cutting ties with bad habits. I personally have never heard of somebody doing that before, but I do love it. But originally, I was always taught that it's to sever ties with people. And like I said, if you don't do that right, it can go horribly wrong. Money spells, if not done right, can go horribly wrong. Love spells, they can go horribly fucking wrong, depending on the love spell. A lot of people, when they hear love spell, they're automatically like, oh my god, no. There are hundreds of thousands of different types of love spells. There's a self-love spell. I personally encourage y'all eventually to create your own altar. A self-love altar. I'm actually going to be in the process of that this weekend. But now when you go into the realms of love spells, as in you are forcing somebody to fall in love with you, that's the reason. And I've actually lost 4 friendships over this argument, because one of these people that I used to know on Instagram, through Instagram, they contacted me and wanted me to help them walk through a love spell. And I'm like, what type of love spell? And they're like, I want him to fall in love with me. And I said, no. And they're like, why? And I said, well, have you ever saw that movie, oh my god, what is it called? Psycho? No, it's not Psycho. What is that movie called? The 90s movie that, oh my god, my brain's not working right now. There's a Fear. Fear. That is the 90s movie. Trigger warning if y'all watch that movie. But that is what's going to wind up happening. What winds up happening if you do a love spell where you are binding someone to you, what happens when you lose those feelings? It's that saying that, I don't know if y'all heard it, I was told growing up, never leave the person you love for the person you like, because the person you like will leave you for the person they love. Now, what that means is, and this is to anybody who is in a relationship, me and my partner do it, if I develop a crush on somebody and I tell my partner that I have a crush on this person, that goes away. The feeling of that crush goes away because it's no longer a secret. But at the same time with that, no, I'm not going to go into that. I had an example, but I'm not going into that example. What happens if you bind someone to you, right? Because you think that almost that puppy love stage that everybody goes through. And you realize that this entire time that y'all have been talking, this person has been hiding who they really are. But you've already done the love spell that bound y'all together, right? Come to find out, say this person is a complete and utter psycho. Narcissist, psycho, I'm talking all of it. You're stuck with them now. What does that mean? That means every single time you try to leave that person, either A, they're going to become a stalker and start stalking you, or B, they're going to be pulled to you. That's the difference between a lot of people believe twin flames is this amazing love story. No, it's not. And I'm with my twin flame, so I know this. Twin flames, they can work. Holy shit, they can work, but it takes a lot of work on both parts. Your twin flame is the exact opposite of you. So, in a way, it's like imagine your shadow self, you falling in love with them. That's what a twin flame is, not this star-crossed lovers. They are, in the simple fact, normally they wind up getting together and they're that person, that the one that got away but you also shouldn't be with. Me and my partner, I've been told by multiple other people that I trust that we are each other's twin flames. Because when we first got together, due to the fact of how my environment was versus how he was raised, there was a lot of conflicting shit. Not to mention he's a water sign and I'm a fire sign. But we have been together now 6 years, I think. 6 years? 5 years? 5 or 6 years. And we met on Grindr. Literally, how we did it, no idea. I was 4.5 hours away from him, and he recently upgraded the app, so the GPS could go farther on. I was the last person on his list, and he messaged me, and I will never forget this message because it wasn't like if you've never been on Grindr, they don't cut to the chase. There is no breaking the ice on that app. It's just like most other dating apps, really. But he responded to me and he goes, name 5, do you know these 5 bands? Falling in Reverse, there was Falling in Reverse, Bring Me to the Horizon, Evanescence, Slipknot, and I forgot the other one, and I'm like, yeah, I know them, why? And he goes, oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure you wasn't fake. Versus how I wear my profile picture back then was I had blackout contacts, which I have to get again. And I had one of my grimoires in my hand, and I was down on the floor, and I was looking up with black eyes. It was really, really cool. But I was alternative, basically. I always used to wear black. I had multiple color hair. That was also when I had my lip ring, and then I'd recently got rid of the angel bites that I had. Technically, they were panda bites because the piercer fucked up. Anyways, not the point. Sorry, I got off track. Turn that back around. We had issues, though. We've split multiple times, and we've come back to each other. We've always been drawn to one another. That's what a twin flame is. Now, soulmates, that's different. But when it comes to these love spells or these domination spells, there are spells that I will not do. And that's a personal preference to me. It's also because of trauma that I've been through before. I understand what it's like to be in a relationship like that, where basically the person that you're with is controlling everything you do. And these are things that it is actually, hold that thought. Ha! Let me see if I can find it. This book right here explains it, of what I'm trying to say. Wait, this is highlighted. And yes, before anybody says it, I am one of those people that highlight my books. Oh, come on, where's it at? Wait, spoken word. Do you understand the significance of the practice? No. Unlocking. Okay, so I can't find the actual script thing, but he has a chapter in that book, and the entire chapter is dedicated on the responsibility of a practitioner, or a conjurer, root worker, whatever you name it, whatever you call yourself is. And what does that mean? That means that when a situation arises, you have a responsibility into thinking clearly of how you should respond to this situation. Does this situation deserve a hex? Does it deserve a curse? Does it deserve a retribution spell? Does it deserve me not doing anything whatsoever and going the other way? These are all questions you need to ask yourself before doing some type of baneful working or spell against another person. Another thing that a lot of people do not incorporate into spell work is how is the person going to be affected mentally? What do I mean by that? Personal story from my life. I did a binding. It was one of my first bindings. It was when I was still trying to get my footing, and yes, I did the binding from the craft. It worked, by the way. Um Interesting fact with the original craft and the reboot, whatever the second one was, Legacies, they actually did have a practicing witch on set on all of it. Throughout everything, they had a practicing priestess. She was a high priestess, and they asked, what they should and should not do. With that being said, a lot of those spells in the craft movie can be used. They're just not going to have the effects that you saw in that movie. But the binding one where you get a white ribbon, you get a piece of paper, and you say, I bind you so-and-so from doing harm against other people, and harm against yourself. And you basically do that. I did that. I also didn't hide it well enough because a family member found it. The person I was binding had found it and undid it. They kind of had a break in, not really a psychotic break, but they got very, very violent and arrested shortly after that. And I was there. A lot of my shit got damaged. That was my first lesson. And for so long, probably 5 years after that, I would not go anywhere near a binding whatsoever until I learned more about it and realized that's what it was. But a lot of people don't even think about that of, okay, I'm about to throw this hex. What is it going to do mentally to the other person? If you throw something like that to a person who is slightly unstable, it could completely unravel their entire life. Now, again, this aspect in this conversation goes into the morals of the actual practitioner. They're all going to be different. Nobody's going to have the same moral compass. There are things that I will, and there are things that I will not do for other people or even myself in a practice. There was a discussion that Witchfoot did about hot foot powder. I disagree with that discussion, and a lot of practitioners like that I have blocked because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Hot foot powder and the way that I was learned to make it, for one, you do not use salt, and whoever is using salt in it, I don't understand that concept. There's also a conversation I want to have about salt that blew my mind. But hot foot powder, the traditional way that, not traditional way, the way that I was taught it, you get the name, full name, and birthday of the person you're talking about. Now, you burn that, you create a petition, and then you burn it. You get red pepper flakes and black pepper, and you mix them together with, this is key, you are supposed to collect the footprint or shoe print of the person that you are trying to get the fuck out of your life. You collect that dirt, you put it in the same bottle, you shake it up, and then you lay it down in their footprints and or a path that them and only them can walk over. And it will basically carry that motherfucker right out your life. But here's the issue with that and why it can be dangerous. If you live in a household with, say, like 8 people, but you're only trying to get one of them out, if the other 8 people walk across that path with that being down, it can also cause issues with them. Now, online, somehow they've mixed it to where you add salt, red pepper flakes, and black pepper flakes, and then boom, it's done. That's not hot foot powder. And I don't understand why some practitioners, and I'm not hating on them because I'm trying to learn with this, I don't understand why some practitioners will use salt in a lot of things that don't. With that being said, though, here's an interesting study that they did with salt. So we understand in metaphysically, we're going to say, salt as in it absorbs all negative energy, correct? Yes, correct. Okay. Did you know that they actually did a study and that it suggested that salt does not just absorb negative energy. Salt absorbs all energy. So imagine creating a circle of salt. Please do not do that, by the way. If you work outside, do not use fucking salt, especially on the ground. Why? If you use salt on property or on land too much, it is called, and you are going to create what is known, there's that damn dog again, chasing these damn ducks. I'm so shocked that my next door neighbor has not walked out and tried popping a pellet in that dog. Not that I'm for that whatsoever. Holy shit. But somebody has this one dog that they will completely release and it will chase the ducks halfway across. I've seen it swim in the lake and literally go across the lake. Anyways, the owner needs to get it. But anyways, with the salt, there's a study done that it absorbs all salt. One of the reasons you do not need to use salt outside is because back then in the night, we're going to say night castle days, one of the techniques that they used to use was, okay, so say you live in a castle, right? An actual huge castle, right? Well, you've locked yourself in there because we're on the outside. How do I get you out of that, right? You razzle the soil. You're probably looking at me like, what the fuck is razzling? I hope I'm saying that right. What they used to do was they would pour a shit ton of salt and mix it in with the soil around the castle. When that happens, that soil no longer becomes sustainable for food. So you literally kill everything. And it depending on how much salt you add, you may never be able to extract that. So if you constantly use salt on your property, you can do the same thing. Now, with that being said, what are alternatives? Sticks and logs. I've used it so many times, not to mention if it breaks down just right, you're eventually going to have a ring of mushrooms around your circle. Flowers. Flowers is amazing to use. Flour. Cornstarch. Ground up eggshells. Think of things that you can use, but also the earth in itself will benefit from. And most of the time, and not all practitioners use circles. In traditional witchcraft, which eventually, as soon as I get the a tripod for it, I'm going to film, which is throwing the compass. They do not believe in traditional witchcraft and actually in conjuration. In Canada, we use salt on the roads all winter to melt the snow, and it's a problem for the... Exactly. We do that here, too, in the United States. And again, it's a problem because it washes off eventually, and it goes out into there. I mean, if you really wanted to have an area, and I would not suggest this because ecologically it's really, really bad, but one of the gas stations that I used to work at in Alabama, it was one of the old school gas stations, not one of the newer ones. I loved working there, though. It's bumfuck middle of nowhere. Anyways, I had to check the gas, the measurement of gas. And they may have a different way now, but where I had to do it, there was this giant stick, and we had to pop it open, and we had to stick it down in there to see where it would wet. When I was doing this with diesel fuel, I accidentally dropped like 2 things on there, and the owner of the store, he's like, well, great, nothing's ever going to grow there. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, diesel fuel, nothing will grow there. You've completely ruined the soil. I was like, oh, well, that was an interesting fact. But some practitioners, traditional witchcraft is one, they don't understand the concept, or they don't get the concept of a circle. What I mean by that is they understand why you have the circle, but at the same time, they believe that you're closing yourself off versus, hold on, Bubbers. You're okay, just don't pop me every single time I move my damn hand. But they believe that it should be open. You're drawing a circle, so you're closing that. How are you supposed to draw energy? How are you supposed to pull energy in? So they have something, what is known as throwing the compass. And it's basically a circle that has a 4-length cross in it, basically kind of like the crossroads, to where those parts are not closed off. They are open. Another good thing, like I said, cornstarch, cornmeal, diatomic earth could be good for it, especially if you do have a garden. It's great for killing pests and stuff. But these are all things that you can use. Brick dust, another great thing. Popular belief, for one, brick dust is not closed. Brick dust has been used for hundreds of thousands of years by all different types of cultures and practices. Now, with that being said, can you use a normal brick? Yes. It can be more powerful if you can get older bricks from, say, like, if you could get a brick from when they're condemning a building, say it was from a courthouse, say it was from an old bank, say it was from an old restaurant, you can incorporate the use of that into that brick dust. I use brick dust, and one of the last times I went to a graveyard, I collected, kind of, it's like an old school brick where it was primarily made of like sand and soil. It's 250 years old that I started using in my practice. That shit is strong as fuck. Um, but anyways, also if you do get books like this, because I know hundreds of thousands of practitioners that use petitions. Depending on what side of TikTok you land on, though, they say it's closed. But there's nothing wrong with reading and educating yourself, because always remember, at the end of the day, education is power. As in, knowledge is power, power is knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the more power you have. Why? Because you have the knowledge to be able to understand things. Um, but I forgot the term for it. I have an addiction with collecting books, not necessarily reading them all, but collecting them. And the reason that is because I want to have a library, but a library of all the knowledge that I can possibly get. Like the other day when I was in Gainesville, there's a right next to the college, I had a oh, I don't want to say this because I'm gonna butcher it. A devotee, I hope I said that right, in the Hindu beliefs. And they randomly came out to my car, gave me a bookmark, which I actually am using today, with a mantra on it to bring happiness and peace. They gave me their book, I don't know what it's properly called, the Kaya Gita, I think it's called. Um, Sorry, ADD moment. And then they gave me a cookbook. It is vegan and plant-based, but I'm actually interested to see what I can make from it. And I loved it. And then she randomly snapped a picture of me. Um, and now it's on my bookshelf. I have a Holy Bible, two cubbies over from that. That's on my bookcase. What other books do I have on my bookcase? I think there's two other ones that I can't remember. Now does that mean I've read them from front to back? No. But a lot of my witchy books like this, most of them I do read, but I also use them as references. That way, if somebody else outside of me needs knowledge, well, now I have it. That's also one of the reasons the Amazon list is there, is because the more books I can get, I'll be able to review them and talk about them, and then also turn around and talk to it about y'all. Also reminds me, I got to make a note that I've got to add these onto the wish list. Hold on. For the people that did not know, in my link tree, there is a link that's for an Amazon list, but it's not for me. It's a book recommend. I think it's called the Magical Library. It's a list of all the books that I could actually find that Amazon had that I have as a book recommendation, and I update them. That way you can also see what I have in my collection. Now, there are some books you will be able to find them cheaper in a store. I have a Silver Raven one book for some reason on Amazon. It's like $200, but in reality it was like 16, 18 bucks. Um, but yeah, like that's the reason it's for, and this is how you create a community. There's no such thing as a dumb question. There's no such thing as don't feel hesitant. If you have a question, ask me. If I can't answer it, I will find somebody that can answer it. But this whole back and forth thing that people are doing online, it needs to stop because it's making all of the witches look like a fool. Um, but yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today. Like I said, this weekend I do plan on making those videos, and then as soon as I get through with these books, I will be talking about them. I'm actually really excited to start both of them. And then of course I'm almost dropping everything. The Conjure Cards I'm obsessed with. And then like I said, to anybody who is interested in Conjure or Southern Conjure, The Secret Keys of Conjure, an amazing book. They also credit a lot of the reasons that we have, like, you'll understand if you read the book. Have you ever talked about Spirit Box before? Wait. What type of spirit box? Are we talking about the, like, EVP paranormal spirit box? Of course, you too. I haven't really, but I can. I can do that tomorrow. No, wait. Tomorrow's Friday. I don't know if I'm going to go live tomorrow. That would be a cool topic. Okay. I will definitely, do some research as well. Because I've used one. But yes, I would definitely talk about spirit boxes. But, yeah, if you are interested in Southern Conjure, this book and Southern Cunning, which is different than Conjure, but especially if you grew up in Florida or if you live in Florida, really cool book to have. This book, on the other hand, if it is on your list, I would not get it if you were a beginner, because it is advanced. It's not for beginners. A lot of the concepts in it are for advanced. Yes, no, I haven't, but I will. And I'll talk a little bit of right now. A spirit box is basically, and I'm about to spill them again. A spirit box is a device. They have apps for it now too. It is basically a device that it runs through radio frequencies. And people believe that spirits can interact with them or slightly manipulate it to where they can actually speak to you. Now, I personally use them, and I do know that they can work. It's also a safer way versus trying to use a spirit board, because, like, you're not opening a doorway, you're opening a phone call, basically. With that, though, the app ones, I don't really like that much because it can be pre-programmed. But there are some that I would say it would be fun. Like, there's GhostTube. I think it's called GhostTube in the App Store. That's kind of fun. I've used it multiple times. I've only had one word actually come through, and that was disrespectful. And I was in my circle at nighttime, so I don't know what that was. But yeah, I do believe in them, and I will make a more detailed video with that being stated. Also, I'll incorporate with that. I'll incorporate what an EVP is, what the other tools that they use in paranormal practices in paranormal ghost hunting. Of course. And then if you're interested in that, check out some of my videos with some of the ghost stories that I've shared before, because I used to actually ghost hunt, and then I had 2 blogs that I used to do about it. There's multiple places that I went in Alabama, and then there's like 2 or 3 places that I've been down here. So yeah, and let me know if y'all would like me to. I will try to plan it out. There will be a weekend where I'll try to go to a cemetery. I'm not going to go ghost hunting, but I can walk y'all through live. I can walk y'all through some of the safety things and respectful things to do in a cemetery and or a graveyard. But yeah, I definitely will, and I'm going to make a mental note of it. And then, of course, any of the Jake Richards books, they're amazing. And they're very insightful. So yeah, with that being said, thank y'all so much for joining me. And like I said, I have a Discord. You can find all of this in a link tree. Of course, I definitely will. It's going to take some planning due to transportation and my partner's job, but I definitely will. It'll definitely be in the works. With that also being stated, I have a Discord. You can find it in the link tree. Podcasts, Instagrams, TikToks, and obviously YouTube. And then thank you. If any of y'all would like to contact me and have a consultation regarding custom spell work and or reading, if you do not use Facebook, you can either email me, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on my Instagram. I would say TikTok, but TikTok has changed to where unless we are mutuals and you send me a message, only 3 messages can be sent. But yeah, remember the 17th is the last day, or the 17th is the day my prices on my readings will change. But if you contact me now, I will work with you if, like, you don't get, like, you don't get financially, you don't get the money until after the 17th. Let me know and I will work with you and we'll try to figure something out. They're still going to be affordable. They're like going to be less than $50. Trust me, very affordable. But yeah, and I use Oracle. I do not use Tarot on that. And eventually, once I get good at them, I'll use these. That will not be anytime soon, though. It'll probably be sometime next year. But anyways, thank y'all so much for joining me. And yeah, I will see y'all later. Peace.